I was sitting next to someone on a plane recently. You know how most flights go. Small talk, headphones, everyone pretending not to exist. This one went differently. We started talking, not about work or the news, but about a philosophy class they were taking. A class built around the work of Shelly Kagan. Kagan is a longtime professor at Yale. He's taught one of the university's most popular courses for years. A course simply called Death. Not religion, not self-help. Just a clear, unsentimental look at what death is and what it isn't. What started as a passing conversation turned into a long one, then a deeper one, then one of those rare exchanges that stays with you after the flight ends. That conversation is what sparked this episode. Because somewhere between being a parent and watching your child step toward adulthood, death stops being abstract. It becomes personal. And once that door opens, it doesn't really close again. Death has become a product category. And it's getting weird. We used to treat mortality like weather. It shows up, you dress accordingly, you don't negotiate with it. Now, we treat death like a software bug, and we're shopping for the patch. We whisper about death at funerals, then scroll past someone calmly explaining how to manage it. We avoid the word die around kids, then hand them a world that sells optimize everything by age 16. We say we're too modern for superstition, while treating a wearable ring like it's a priest. And then there's a moment in a Wired interview. A man is asked a question that should be easy. True or false, you will die. He answers, false. Not, I hope not. Not, I'm trying. Not, let's define terms. Just, false. That's not confidence. That's a belief about reality. And it creates this episode's tension. If death is false, what are we doing with our lives right now? And if death is still, quietly, stubbornly, true, what exactly are we afraid of? Because here's the part most people skip. A lot of what we call fear of death is really fear of losing the life we haven't quite lived yet. That's not a quote. It's an observation. In this episode, we're going to slow this down. Not to teach a class, not to review a book, just to think clearly about something we all avoid. This is Think First, where we don't follow the script. We question it. Because in a world full of poetic truths and professional gaslighting, someone's got to say the quiet part out loud. There are two dominant scripts in modern culture. Script 1. Death is taboo. Don't talk about it. It's dark. It's trauma. Script 2. Death is optional, or at least negotiable, a technical hurdle, something discipline and data can manage. Both scripts feel emotionally satisfying. The first relieves discomfort, the second relieves terror, and both quietly discourage thinking. When we don't think clearly about death, we don't think clearly about life. Kagan forces questions that sound academic until you realize they're sitting behind everyday choices. Why does death feel bad for the person who dies? If being dead isn't an experience. If death is bad, when is it bad? And if non-existence after death is a problem, why isn't non-existence before birth a problem too? These aren't party tricks. They sit behind why we delay, why we optimize instead of decide, why someday feels responsible. Poetic truth tells us death is either too sacred to touch or too solvable to fear. Distortion begins when that framing replaces scrutiny. And the unsaid part, the thing people avoid saying because it breaks the mood, is this. If you treat death as a bug, you'll treat your life like an app that never quite launches. Kagan begins with one thing he says we can be sure of. We're going to die. Then he refuses to sentimentalize it. First question. What are you? Before death means anything, identity has to mean something. Kagan spends significant time in the course on the metaphysics, soul views, body views, and what it would even mean for you to continue. Most people have strong intuitions here. Kagan's move is quieter. Intuition isn't an argument. Second question. What makes you you over time? Body? Personality? Memory? Kagan pushes this with classic duplication problems. If your psychological profile could be copied, what exactly persists? This matters more now than when those thought experiments were invented. Because modern culture talks about digital selves, like the identity question is already solved. It isn't. Third question, what is death? If death means not currently functioning, then sleep counts. So Kagan distinguishes the process of dying from the state of being dead and treats permanence as central to the concept. When language slides between dying, death, and being dead, clarity collapses. Here's the problem. If being dead isn't an experience, then death can't be bad because it feels bad while you're dead. So, why is it bad? Kagan's central tool here is what he calls the deprivation account. Death is bad because it deprives you of the good things you would have had if you kept living. Not pain, not fear, loss. Kagan says it plainly. Being dead isn't intrinsically bad. It's comparatively bad because you no longer get the goods of life. That fits how people actually feel. We don't fear nothingness in the abstract. We fear missing dinners, conversations, plans, unfinished loves, the next good chapter. Death feels like theft because it takes a future we were counting on. Then Kagan pressure tests the view with puzzles that don't go away just because they're annoying. The timing problem. If death is bad for me, when is that fact true? Not now, I'm alive. Not later, I don't exist. So where do you date the harm? The existence requirement. Do you need to exist for something to be good or bad for you? If yes, the deprivation account looks shaky. If no, you need to explain why not. And then the symmetry problem. If it's tragic that you don't exist after death, why isn't it equally tragic that you didn't exist before birth? The point isn't to bully emotion. The point is to test coherence. And it exposes something uncomfortable. We are biased toward the future, not because it's rational, because it's human. The modern longevity story carries a strong poetic truth. We are finally rational, finally scientific, finally free from ancient fears. Death is outdated software, and to be fair, Steelman moment, there's real compassion here. Less suffering, fewer early deaths, more healthy years with people we love. That's not crazy. But here's the break test. Even if you add years, what are the years for? When health turns into virtue, when mortality starts sounding like failure, we aren't solving death. We're avoiding meaning. The extra time illusion. We confuse adding days with adding meaning. Time doesn't automatically generate value. Time can be empty. Time can be anesthetized. Time can be filled with motion that looks like living, while quietly postponing life. If death is bad because it deprives us of future goods, then this stops being an abstract question, because future goods aren't vague ideas. They're specific. They're conversations you keep meaning to have. Work you know matters, but never quite gets priority. Time with people you love that keeps getting pushed to next month, next year, someday. They're the risks you delay because the timing isn't perfect, the forgiveness you postpone because it feels inconvenient, the attention you promise yourself you'll give once things slow down, and we delay them because we live as if time is generous, as if it renews automatically, as if it's owed. So the real question isn't just whether death comes too soon. It's whether we're spending the time we already have as if it were guaranteed, because that assumption, quiet, invisible, rarely questioned, shapes more of our lives than we like to admit. I'll add one personal note here, not an argument, not a conclusion you're required to share, just where I land. Kagan gave me cleaner questions. My faith gives me a place to stand. I'm a Christian, and in that view, death isn't annihilation. The person continues. Accountability continues. Love and relationship don't end at the grave. That doesn't erase grief. It doesn't make loss easy. It changes what the word final means. And if you don't share that belief, that's fine. My only ask is this: don't borrow your view of death from the culture's mood. Choose it deliberately, because it quietly chooses how you live. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and always think first. If this episode resonates, there's a longer version of this thinking in the book Distorted. It's available now in paperback on Amazon and in bookstores. The ebook is available wherever you read digitally: Kindle, Apple Books, Nook, and other major platforms. There's also a special edition hardback at Barnes & Noble. One honest note: books don't spread because they're good. They spread because people leave reviews. That's how algorithms decide what gets seen and what quietly disappears. So, if you read Distorted and it gives you language for something you felt but couldn't quite name, a short review helps more than you think. And if you don't see it at your local bookstore, ask for it. That still matters. If you're curious how I think through these stories, the framework lives at gaslight360.com.